All right, everyone, we start off today talking about Pete Buttigieg's disaster of a visit to Eastpalestine, Ohio. Even members of the legacy media are kind of dragging him on this one. I don't know which one's the bigger disaster, like the actual disaster or Pete Buttigieg's political career spiraling down a toilet because of this. I'll be addressing this today as part of my live stream, which is that I don't know that he really retains viability after such a thing. Maybe it'll end up being his Katrina moment. Biden passes the buck off on him, and he ends up taking the lumps for it. He ends up taking the fall. It's almost bizarre the way that he showed up. First, the Biden admin chose to wait until Trump had already announced to deliver FEMA funding. Then Trump says, I'm going to go and visit today. And literally the next day, Buttigieg shows up. I'm sure that this wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a reaction to Donald Trump choosing to force the issue. I see the legacy media complaining about how Trump only went there to stage a photo op. Please tell me why Buttigieg went there, because he didn't deliver any aid. He didn't want to talk to anyone. He met with officials. He wouldn't answer anyone's questions. He referred them to his own press secretary, and the press secretary said, well, I'll answer all your questions, but not on camera. So you're not even willing to answer questions about the chemical spill there, the hazardous disposal of vinyl chloride, contamination, or anything else under the sun, unless it's not actually going to be documented. I'm sure that makes people in the area feel a whole lot better. And by the way, when he was meeting with some of the workers there, which I'm sure he didn't want to do, he looked like the OSHA poster boys. He's got the reflective jacket and the hard hat and the safety glasses and everything else. It's like, yeah, okay, you really need to dress like you're one of the workers when quite clearly they're talking to you. They're not actually doing any hazardous work at the time, even if they're on the clock. I suppose there's some regulation probably that made him do this, but it reminded me, sort of. Have you ever seen corporate training videos for any job? Sometimes when you go to work for a company, Walmart's is the funniest, by the way. That was leaked years ago. It tells you like what to expect on the job, how you can behave. People who work for Acme Incorporated must be talented and forthright and take initiative. Not too much, though. Suck it if the CEO tells you to. And it's always very dry, very scripted. Usually not a whole lot of, actual believability in the acting, which is technically what they're doing. And it's just to tell you what to expect on the job and shit. But it's very dry and very boring. And when you get to the workplace, people don't always actually go by the slogans that they were taught. Walmart's is the funniest because of the union part. Now, part of it's true, like, yeah, unions can be devastating to a company. Well, of course they can. But telling them that they should snitch on their coworkers if they overhear them even talking about unions, that's a little bit far. And then it's a little bit on the draconian side. People should be able to discuss what they want to in the break room. This was basically like that. He shows up. Trump shows up, he's giving people McDonald's, he's handing out water, he's handing out cleaning supplies, he's shaking hands with people in the actual community. When Buttigieg shows up, he meets with officials, he meets with some workers, but he won't answer any questions from the public. When he's hardballed, he says, well, it's basically a conspiracy. I'm not here to play politics. Why then did you wait until the day after Trump showed up to show up yourself? Before you said, well, go when the time is right. Well, I guess that the time was right as a political expedient. You wouldn't have shown up at all, bitch boy, if it hadn't been for Trump showing up to preempt you. Of course it was partially a photo op. But he then helped people. You're not helping people. I don't see Pete Buttigieg digging out contaminated soil or handing out McDonald's to people. It's beyond his pay grade to care. You could tell, by the way, that he didn't really like being around that sort of folk anyway. Because he's an ivory towerist, basically. He's sort of like a Truman in personality when you think about it, which you could do better for a future U.S. president. Now, I've said many times that Buttigieg was near the top of the field as far as viability. Some people, for some reason, by the way, misconstruing that, I think deliberately in comment sections, by the way, as me supporting Pete Buttigieg. No, I just think that he would be a viable contender in an open primary if Biden doesn't run. He would have been near the top of the pack. By the way, polls agree with me on this repeatedly. For some bizarre reason, Kamala sometimes ekes out ahead of him. I still think Buttigieg would be better than Kamala as a contender, but this lowers his viability. The public disaster, when you show up, but you're not willing to meet with the community. You're not really willing to answer questions, and you look uncomfortable the entire time, even being around all these rednecks and rubes, really optically didn't work for him. He ought to have not gone at all. It arguably would have been better to not show up and simply rehash that canned, scripted, sloganeered line that the Biden admin was using before. Well, we don't need to go. We've got the EPA and FEMA there. It's already being worked on. We're doing everything that we can from a distance. We don't want to drink your water, you fucking bumpkins. It would have arguably been better to do that and leave question as to whether you were being insulting towards the community than to show up and not answer questions, not even the press's questions, and insist that even that be off camera. It makes it look like you've got something to hide. Now, even if that's not the case, and trust me, everyone, it is in theirs, even if it weren't, you're being totally innocent. You just don't want to answer the fucking questions in an open forum on a street. Okay, but you can understand how it looks. You're not even Buttigieg. You're his press secretary. Isn't that your job, to answer people's questions, like in the explicit sense? And we've got this problem with other members of the admin. Kamala doesn't like to answer questions, nor her staff. Biden often walks off in the middle of a question or says no questions at all. The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, and before her, the chick from Peanuts that I can't remember the name of, the circle back around lady, they've been the same way, openly dismissive. Well, I'll answer that later. Well, let's circle back around. Let's frame this a little bit differently and stuff like that. And then, when they do answer a question, it's usually an outright lie. This is worse, though. This is a major environmental disaster. They're getting some flack from the left, although they're trying to deflect to Orange Man bad. Well, if Donald Trump hadn't torn apart irrelevant regulations that have literally nothing to do with this kind of train or braking system, magically the situation would have been better. Ignore Norfolk Southern cutting corners and having wonky issues and being involved in this cover-up. Ignore the initial absence of FEMA. Ignore the Biden admin's unwillingness to address the situation until forced to, because a bunch of content creators got it trending on Twitter and then Trump showed up. They weren't even addressing the goddamn issue. They poo-pooed it and completely dismissed it until they were forced to address it. Now that they're addressing it, it's even worse for them because it makes them look like the out-of-touch people that they really are. Buttigieg does not escape from this unscathed. That's about all. Peace out.